the Hebe statue was also part of that. It was a fountain as well, a drinking fountain for humans, and for horses, and for dogs and cats.
Oh.
It was actually a fountain as well. And Hebe was the Greek goddess of kind of hospitality, but she was also cupbearer to the gods.
Yeah.
And so that's why she had the little cup, and that's why she was a fountain. And some of the ladies here, Colonel Savage's nieces, wanted to do some. So I feel like, you have to be a great storyteller to be a great history teller too. You can look up facts, you can look up figures, you can look up dates and stuff, but telling the kind of the story behind the story and making things come alive.
Hey guys, Kelly here with Warren First 931 with our first ever segment of History with Haley. And like I said, and I brag on you all the time, like we went to school, he was my teacher in economics, and then when I was in middle school and also elementary, when we had, or it was not middle school, it was BYSI, so it was elementary, right? And he was always the fun, like everybody would be like, we need to get Haley's bus. We need to get Haley's team, because he was so much fun at YSI. Because when he would explain the history of Warren County, it was just captivating, and it was always a fun story to tell. And so thank you for being a part of this with me.
Well, it's great because I feel like, you have to be a great storyteller to be a great history teller too.
Exactly.
So, you can look up facts, you can look up figures, you can look up, dates and stuff, but, telling the kind of the story behind the story and making things come alive, particularly for little kids. And adults love it too. So when we do cemetery tours, it's the same way. It's people love the stories because that's what, when I walk through a cemetery or something, which we did in YSI a lot.
We did.
Graveyards and spooky places and all that. It's when you walk through a cemetery, I just don't see dead people. I see stories.
Right.
I see lives. I see, how things evolve from the people who are buried there. So
Exactly.
I just, so that makes it come alive to me, and always did as a child too.
Aw. Well, with that said, since the podcast is called Warren First, based on Warren County, you came up with an amazing first segment about how Warren County, who it was named after, and like the birth of Warren County, right?
The birth of Warren County. People, when we did our bicentennial a few years ago, it kind of restirred some interest in where we came from and who we were. And people always ask, who was Warren County named after? Who was McMinnville named after? And how long did they live here? Well, before the white men ever came, this was all Native American lands, and you still see some evidence of up on Cardwell Mountain where there's a ceremonial site, and was a big like table-like monument with glyphs and stuff on it. Most of it's been destroyed, but the state's taken charge of that property now, so hopefully there'll be a good interpretation. And there's Indian mounds, and those were from thousands of years ago.
Right.
When the white man came here, this was not inhabited really by natives. It was Cherokee hunting grounds, so the Cherokee would come from northern Alabama and Georgia and hunt here, and they would stay, on occasions for for weeks hunting game and taking it back. But when white men started coming here in the late 1700s, while it was still Indian territory, and before it was even a state, so Tennessee became a state in 1796. But there was already people scouting out land grants from the Revolutionary War and all of that. So when Warren County was actually first being settled, we were still part of White County and other counties even before that. And so people were kind of squatting here illegally because the Indian treaties had not been signed, and so they were staking out claims, and it didn't make the natives very happy about at all. But they forged ahead, and settlers came, and they petitioned in 1806 for Warren County to be established. And so choosing the name Warren County, we really don't know why it was chosen per se, or who chose it, except that a very famous Revolutionary War soldier, Dr. Joseph Warren, who died in the Battle of Bunker Hill at Breed's Hill, early in the American Revolution. He was a noted physician in Massachusetts, and was very well respected, and everybody loved him. He's actually the guy that sent Paul Revere and William Dawes on their famous ride to save John Hancock and William Dawes and others that the British were coming. The British were coming. So Dr. Warren was very well respected. So we're not really sure why they chose Dr. Warren's, as Warren County. We did that. We're pretty sure that it was Henry J.A. Hill, who was an early settler here, and Hills Creek is named after his family. Hillsborough in Georgia is named after his family. Hillsborough in Hills County in Texas is named after his family. So they were
they're a well-known family
because they traveled. They came from North Carolina, and he'd been injured in when his father was made tar. We talked about tar hills in North Carolina, but pine tar was really big, and so he was stirring pine tar and fell into a vat and damaged his leg. So he was he had some physical challenges in life, but it didn't stop him from serving in the first General Assembly, and it's probably part of the reason why we think Warren County may have been named Warren County, but we're not sure who came up with the name. And so when we were part of White County, the county seat was at Rock Island. And then when the two counties were split into White and Warren, part of them became the county seat. And then they picked a site in central location of the county to meet. But our first original meeting was across at Gobbler's Knob at Tanyard Springs in the home of Joseph Westmoreland. And then they built a log courthouse, which has been kind of recreated using some of the logs and stones at the Pioneer Village, Fairfield Village at the fairgrounds. But in 1810, they petitioned for the city of McMinnville to be built as a proper county seat, and so it was petitioned to the General Assembly, and J.A. Hill was probably instrumental in that as well. And so Joseph McMinn was the Speaker of the Senate at that particular time in the General Assembly. And Henry J.A. Hill, they were good friends, having served together in the Assembly, and knew each other from political backgrounds that overlapped a little bit. And so Joseph McMinn was the Speaker of the Senate, and so it was presented to the General Assembly, and it was named in honor of him. But he never lived here. He never lived here. Now, there are Warren counties all over the country.
There are.
And they're all named for pretty much for Joseph Warren. There's only one other McMinnville, and that's McMinnville, Oregon.
That's what I was going to say.
McMinnville, Oregon. So there's two McMinnvilles, and that's because William Newby basically took a wagon train of folks from Tennessee, many from McMinnville, and blazed the Oregon Trail all the way to the Willamette Valley, and founded a new town that he named in honor of his old town in McMinnville, Tennessee.
You leave McMinnville to go make another McMinnville.
That's right, and so we're kind of sister cities of sorts. But Joseph McMinn went on to become governor of the state of Tennessee, and then he ended up being an Indian agent later on.
What is an Indian agent?
Well, it was basically to help treaties and transition Native Americans into
the communicator between the white guy, white people,
and then of course the Trail of Tears, eliminated most of that reasons to have those Indian agents here anymore, because the question had been already answered by deportation. So it's one of those things, and the Trail of Tears came through Warren County as well. So Warren County was a major thoroughfare. And so, if you were traveling anywhere going west, you normally came through Warren County. And so the original 300 families that helped petition for the county, 30 years later, we had like 6,000 people living in the county. So, it was a big,
ever growing.
Yeah, we're ever growing. And so 1,000 families, just shortly thereafter, moving here, and they saw opportunity. The land was good, the weather was good, and it was, economically prosperous for a lot of folks to remain here. And McMinnville's never really a city of logs and all that. It was a proper city. It was laid out. The lots were sold. Lot number 1 is over where Ben Myers' forestry office is. That's where John Wilson had the first store. And Captain William White came here from Jackson County to build the courthouse, and liked it so much he decided to stay as well. But now the original courthouse is not the courthouse we see today.
Is that the one?
No, that's the third courthouse to be downtown. The first courthouse sit right in the middle of Court Square. So the octagonal part was original to the downtown layout, and the lots were all divided up, and they sold the lots to help pay for the courthouse to be built.
Oh, well, there you go.
And so it was built right smack dab in the middle of the park. It was a 2-story brick with a little cupola top on the top, and remained there until the 1850s when they decided they needed a bigger courthouse.
Yeah.
And so they built the second courthouse right in front of where the post office is.
Oh.
And so that was not a street through there at that particular time. It was actually a building lot. So they built that. It was a big 2-story brick with columns across the front. And that's the courthouse that was here during the Civil War. And up until the current courthouse was built in the 1890s. So
I was going to say,
we've had
because it's
3
been there
courthouses.
for a while. Yeah.
It's been there, yes.
It's
for
the
over
longest
125.
lasting one.
It is the longest lasting. It's had quite a few remodels over the years, but it's it retains part of its history and stuff from the outside.
Is the statue that's in front of the courthouse, is that original piece from any? Is that?
Well, back about in the turn of the 20th century, there was this big movement to restore the park and people getting outside and having public areas for people to gather. And even though the park had always been that, it was not beautified, so to speak. And so they did concrete curbing, and a fountain was in the middle of the park where the old courthouse, and so that fountain has been returned. But all of that is basically from the turn of the 20th century. And the Hebe statue was also part of that. It was a fountain as well, a drinking fountain for humans, and for horses, and for dogs and cats. It was actually a fountain as well. And Hebe was the Greek goddess of kind of hospitality, but she was also cupbearer to the gods.
Yeah.
And so that's why she had the little cup, and that's why she was a fountain. And some of the ladies here, Colonel Savage's nieces, wanted to do something, in memory of family and to leave a legacy for themselves and their family. And so they're the ones that kind of paid for it through the women's league that was here. It was it did not originally say where it is either. It originally faced down East Main Street. They're close to where the lot is, but when the road was cut down the middle of the park, and right after World War II, they threw Hebe to one side and bulldozed through the middle of the park.
That's great.
And got rid of the fountain and pushed everything out of the way.
But she
and
still
built the road.
remains.
But she remained. She was thrown over to the side.
The gods were protecting her.
And then they re-erected her, and she'd fallen in disrepair. So she's been kind of restored and put back, but she's not a fountain anymore.
And then the fountain that is down here, there's a fun, was that in someone's home, or what was
when
the crazy
when it
story?
was moved, it disappeared, and that fountain probably disappeared long before they cut the road through, because it was in somebody's yard in the 1930s.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
So there was a stone with a round stone, geode stone fountain that was in the middle that was bulldozed out of the way. I've got some of those stones at my house that we found when we did the streetscape project. I found some of them that were still laying around under the dirt. But that current fountain was at the home of where Ben Myers lives today, over on River Cliff.
Okay.
And so the Moores lived there, and then later Luther Curtis and Ollie lived there, and that was there. And then it had several owners after that, and when one of the owners moved, they took the fountain with them and put it in storage. And so when we did the streetscape project, I begged them to give it back so we could put it back in the park.
And it looks amazing.
And it's a great gathering place. It's a great photo op during the prom and during Kinsey celebrations and everything. People at reunions. It's a great gathering place. And kids love to sit around it, and eat ice
even
cream.
in the summer times, we go out there and let the kids throw a coin in or whatever.
And occasionally kids get in and play.
Yes, and occasionally it does get pranked a couple of times throughout the year with the bubbles.
And that's okay too.
It is okay.
It's a little bit of fun as long as it doesn't tear stuff.
Yeah. And another cool thing about downtown, I do know where the Biz Foundry's built, and it's actually in the Sullivan building. Isn't it like the old well or the
there's a cistern under
a cistern,
cistern. There was between the buildings was like a place for mules and stuff to be watered, and so there was a cistern. There's actually a cave system under the city of McMinnville. It's kind of a wet cave with water, and so a lot of people cisterns, however, were not technically wells. Cisterns were actually runoff from rainwater, so people would run rainwater off their roofs with gutters down into a cistern, and that was that was water.
I
You know,
know.
it's not very sanitary at times.
No, better boil that. make
And so,
sure.
but they didn't boil it, you know, and so
course not.
that was a watering hole there. So when Ben was redoing the building, I didn't know the cistern was still there. I'd been told it was there
Yeah.
because they built the building over the cistern later, and but it's still down there.
It's
We don't know
still-
what's in it. We figured stuff's been thrown in it over the
Yeah.
years and stuff, that there might be some artifacts.
Well,
to dig
right
out or
now
something.
there's that still kids are learning above it. So
That's right. So it's a
fingers crossed it's still being used for educational
yeah,
purposes,
and
which is great.
we're thankful that Ben's redone the building. It looks
It
great.
looks awesome.
And it was about to fall down, and there was all kinds of Virginia creeper going up the back of it.
Oh, yes.
And into the brick. And I said, I think that's the only thing probably holding the building up.
Yeah.
And when they took the creeper down, the back of the building fell off.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was actually holding the building up.
But there's just so much, like not just downtown. I mean, we can talk about, but I mean, I know the buildings, the blue building, I was trying to think of the other, how downtown used to look like. Now I'm gonna think the diner that used to be down. I mean, there's just so much how Warren County's grown and how Chad Graves and them have fixed the old Greyhound area down the street from us. It's amazing. Like I always say, kids need to know the history of your town, because whether it's good or bad, we don't want history to repeat itself. We want to grow and continue to grow, right?
Well, it was, and when you were a little kid, and earlier, downtown was not a
It
cool
was not
place
like
to be.
this.
You couldn't walk down the sidewalks.
No.
There was building falling in the streets, boarded up windows. Where the lot is today was a big hole where there had been a fire since the 1960s, and just a big old hole with a metal fence around it, and still debris down in it. It was an eyesore, and so nobody wanted to be downtown. And so one of the things that we did was to do the streetscape project, which was a big deal. That was one of the biggest infrastructure projects that the city of McMinnville had ever done. It wasn't just to make things pretty, but the sewer systems had failed. The storm gutters and stuff had all filled up and collapsed, and so it was rat infested and bug infested. And so rebuilding that infrastructure with new water lines, which some of them had been there 120 years, was crucial to redeveloping downtown and getting people to come. You can't house a building where there's no plumbing, or it backs up or the crest of the street had been paved over so many times. The middle of the street was higher than the sidewalks, so when it would rain, all the water would roll into the building. So it was a huge project, and I was proud to be a part of that. But part of that streetscape was doing histories in the sidewalks and in the bricks and stuff, and the insets, and that helped raise some money. So it was a fundraiser. And Main Street's still selling those insets as well, and the benches. And so to commemorate or to give a little history about the lot or what was there, or somebody famous who may have operated a business there, or Dottie West Mama's Cafe, or Callan Oldham over there at the Park Theater, what a prankster he was, which will be one of our little stories at some point. But we do have a rich history, and when Main Street wasn't even paved until the 1920s, and Mayor J.J. Walker,
I wonder if that's a family member.
he was mayor, and very crucial in helping to get the Broadway of America, which was the first state route, Highway 1, to come through McMinnville.
Oh, wow.
And so, all the way from New York to Los Angeles, and it came through, and it was nicknamed the Broadway of America.
Oh, wow, that's neat.
And so, getting the street paved was a big deal at that particular time. But, that's when we did the streetscape, the streets had been just rock and gravel and dirt for so long that when we dug up, we did a little archaeology thing and unearthed a whole lot of neat things that one portion of which is displayed at City Hall on the second floor, which we may do a little story on that one as well, about the Civil War history that was dug up and displayed, and so that was a big thing too.
I will say, going back to what you said about when the Native Americans were here, and now if you go around, a lot of people that own property, we're a nursery town, and my family is nursery born and bred, and a lot of our nursery properties, when my pa Thomas goes and digs, he finds a slew of arrowheads and like stuff that might have, just the way it looks, and so he gives them to Walker and we save them. And so there's so much history that spreads everything from Viola down to Rock Island, down to that. Again, with History with Haley, my goal for you guys is that he's going to educate us about anything and everything Warren County. And I just appreciate you today so much, Mr.
Thank you for having me. I've been thinking about wanting to do this for a while.
I know.
And so it just kind of played out. And
I want to
so
document your life, man. I just want to document your life. But with that said, this has been our first segment ever of History with Haley. And keep it here at Warren First 931.